the government's flagship asylum policy failing to take off quite literally at the 11th hour.
First flight carrying deported asylum seekers fails to take off after a late intervention by the European Court of Human Rights.
A last-minute order from the Strasbourg Human Rights Court, which is not an EU body, meant a plane chartered by the Home Office for up to £500,000 was left idle on the runway. The last legal battle between the Home Office and the courts played out under a cloud of secrecy on the tarmac. 4:35 p.m, a plane is spotted on the runway at an RAF base in Wiltshire. 6:40 p.m, 2 hours later, the European Court of Human Rights in Strasbourg issues a critical injunction, preventing one of them, a 54-year-old Iraqi, from being put on board. 6:55 p.m, the flight's still going ahead. 5 Home Office vans are spotted at the airbase. 7 p.m, a late-night judge in London is asked by the remaining men's lawyers to look at their cases again, based on this new ruling. One by one, they're given an injunction. 10:10 p.m, the final asylum seeker is removed from the Boeing 767 aircraft, at which point it's announced the flight has been cancelled. 10:44 p.m, the Home Secretary Priti Patel admits defeat.
While this decision by the Strasbourg court to intervene was disappointing and surprising given the repeated and considered judgments to the contrary in our domestic courts, we remain committed to this policy. We believe that we are fully compliant with our domestic and international obligations, and preparations for our future flights and the next flights have already begun.
The Home Office shouldn't fly asylum seekers to Rwanda, it said, until a judicial review in July gives the final say as to whether the policy is legal. The showdown is far from over.
This isn't a long-term plan, it is a short-term stunt. Everyone can see it. It's not serious policy, it's shameless posturing, and she knows it. It's not building consensus, it's just pursuing division. It is government by gimmick. It's not in the public interest, it's just in their political interest.
The European Convention on Human Rights underpins many of our own laws, including the Good Friday Agreement. But yesterday, the PM hinted we could leave it behind in a bid to get the planes off the ground. Some of his MPs are pleased to see the ECHR in the crosshairs.
Means it's time now to consider leaving the European Convention of Human Rights.
But today, Number 10 wouldn't be drawn, saying instead they'd consider any and all legal reforms.
Things like freedom of expression, right to a fair trial, we all agree about those things, but it's the way this has been gold-plated and taken over by courts later on. And it's kind of these, whether it's the activist lawyers or sort of the left-leaning judges or so on,
but
this is what we want to avoid.
It was a British judge last night who ruled that those asylum seekers didn't have to get on that plane and go to Rwanda.
And it was an out-of-hours one, and it was very late, of course, and we
High Court judge, no
less. It happens, but at the same time, I think maybe we need some reform, maybe we need our own Bill of Rights.
This is not about left-wing, right-wing. This is about basic rights and human decency. These are individuals who have been through unimaginable trauma and ordeals, both in their countries of origin and in their journeys to the UK. To put them through additional needless torment like this is just unacceptable.
Removing asylum seekers to Rwanda will stop others trying to get here, the government argues. And the symbolism of just one flight has always been more important than the numbers on board. Symbolism not lost here in Dover, where so many small boats land.
I think it's all a bit of a farce at the moment. They need to stop the people smugglers, and a deterrent would help.
People keep coming to this country, but obviously you can't keep sending them all over the place either, no.
I just think it's disgusting. I just think it's not the way that you treat people.
Yesterday, the government say 444 asylum seekers arrived along the Kent coastline, the highest daily figure since its new policy was announced.
Well, earlier I spoke to Tom Pursglove, the Minister for Tackling Illegal Migration. It was before Lord Geidt's resignation, by the way. And I asked why the government was planning a second flight to Rwanda already.
We believe that this is an important intervention through this policy that will genuinely help to save lives, restore a much better balance back into our asylum system, and of course save money, ensuring that what we don't continue to have is a huge spend, spiralling costs on these illegal crossings into our country, which is clearly unacceptable and clearly unsustainable.
Well, speaking of costs, how much did the first plane cost?
Well, I'm not going to comment on operational sensitivities.
Why not? It's our money.
Well, of course, this is a commercial matter with a provider, and you'll be able to see in the fullness of time the Home Office accounts that will set out the detail of this.
OK, how much money have you sent to Rwanda for these asylum seekers who haven't been sent?
Well, as you know, what we have done is we have established this partnership with £120 million to support the economic development side of it. This is a world-leading, innovative, new approach to these matters. That is a contribution that we have made up front, and we've consistently said that what we will do is we will support the Rwandan government to process claims within their asylum process.
Are there any other payments due to go for each individual?
So as individuals are relocated to Rwanda, and of course their cases are then processed within the Rwandan system, we will make payments that will be similar to the sorts of money that we spend on this in the UK.
How much per person?
I'm not going to, again, comment on the specifics.
Minister, this is public money you are spending
per person.
and not getting anything back for it right now. We'd like to know how much of our money you're spending.
Well, it will vary depending upon the circumstances of individual cases. In the UK at the moment, we are spending nearly £5 million a day on hotel accommodation in our asylum system. That is not sustainable, it is not acceptable, and that's why we need to get those costs under control, whilst also preserving life in the way that we believe this policy will.
There are much easier ways and better ways to protect human life, if that's what you're really interested in.
Well, in your opinion?
Well, you could create safe routes for people to cross.
We have many safe and legal routes to the United Kingdom. Look at the response that we've had to the Ukrainian crisis, the crisis in Afghanistan, the Syrian scheme that we put in place that we should rightly be proud of, and of course the response to the situation in Hong Kong.
Can you confirm that of the people you wanted to put on the plane, there were people who said they had been victims of torture?
It is right and proper that people have the opportunity to raise claims and to raise issues that relate to their specific circumstances. And of course, if there are individuals who believe, for example, that they have been subject to modern slavery, they're able to lodge a claim as appropriate.
But were there
we
or
will
not?
never ever relocate
of those
people
100
if it is
people.
unsafe for them. We take case-by-case decisions, and we will always live up to our international obligations under both ECHR and the Refugee Convention.
Then why are you talking about withdrawing from the ECHR?
I haven't suggested that we will be withdrawing from the ECHR, but
so
what
the
the Prime Minister has been very clear in saying is that we will work through the issues that arise. You will recognise the fact that all of the three British courts upheld our position that the flight should not be injuncted. There was no barrier here in the United Kingdom, and there will now be a substantive hearing in July. But the Prime Minister has said that we will do whatever is necessary to make this policy a reality.
The truth is, you can't withdraw from the European Court of Human Rights, can you?
The position is that we will make appropriate judgments in due course. I'll refer you back to what the Prime Minister has said.
But you can't withdraw, can you?
We will do what is necessary
because it's in the Good Friday Agreement.
To enact this policy. We will always live up to our obligations in relation to the Good Friday Agreement too.
Yeah, because it's in the Good Friday Agreement, you can't withdraw from it. That's the truth, isn't it?
As I say, we will live up to our obligations under the Good Friday Agreement. And of course, the Deputy Prime Minister is also bringing forward a UK Bill of Rights addressing the concerns that we've got about the Human Rights Act. We've consulted on that. He is now evaluating that, looking at it and considering where we go in policy terms, in terms of bringing forward firmer proposals. But we do need to enact this policy. We are committed to it. We believe that it will save lives.
But it's not true,
every day that goes by where the partnership isn't working is a day that people risk their lives in the Channel, and we need to put a stop to that.
How many failed asylum seekers have you managed to deport this year?
It is fair to say that we, of course, have comprehensive returns agreements with countries around the world, and it is right that, for example, we have that cooperation with Albania. We recently signed
Just a number will do. How many?
Agreement. I haven't got that figure to hand.
You don't know?
We will
what was the number last year?
Through an enforced return. We removed, for example, 10,000 foreign national offenders.
I asked about failed asylum seekers. How many failed asylum seekers did you deport last year?
I haven't got that statistic to hand here and now.
Right. I mean, you're the Minister for tackling illegal migration. Why aren't you?
We are. And we've got a comprehensive plan through the new plan for immigration, the only credible plan that is going to achieve this outcome. I think that it is important that we get on and deliver that. We've passed the Nationality and Borders Act through Parliament now. We're enacting the measures that were contained within it. It is right and proper that people who seek sanctuary come through safe and legal routes, that they don't have that risk to life, that we remove those with no right to be here, that we deport foreign criminals without delay. And I would argue that this partnership with Rwanda is an important part of this process.
Tom Pursglove, thank you very much indeed.